is Coffee, Country, and Cody.
Americana Music Fest week in Nashville with the awards show last night. Kelly Sutton will give you details here in just a little bit, but it's all things Americana. It runs through the 21st. And to all the Americana fans, particularly the Ray Wiley Hubbard fans, if you want to know where Ray Wiley in Snake Farm got the idea for the girl Ramona with the little mouse and the sailor hat tattoo on her arm, there she sits.
Oh.
Welcome, Kelly Sutton.
I was legit looking around
Coffee,
for her.
Country, Cody. This is her. He changed her name to protect her in Snake Farm. Sounds nasty. Snake Farm. It is. Charlie Mattos, Annie Nye. She just got it off the red carpet from last night's Americana celebration. She and Aaron Cooper.
It's hard. It's hard work when you're doing that at night and then coming back in here.
And then rock solid Jeff Roberts is in master control just above us here as we sit in the Acuff house. Actually, the living room of Roy Acuff's home on the Grand Ole Opry Plaza is where we do the show now. Been in here for a couple of months, just long enough to mess it up.
Just long enough to mess it up. Yeah.
Who lives here?
You know what we
looks like a college dorm.
You know what I haven't seen?
What?
Where's our vacuum, our robot? We have a little
Our little
robot,
Roomba?
our little Roomba. Where'd he go?
Oh, he didn't make it from the hotel, I don't think.
You left him over there?
I didn't, but
Maybe
I have not seen
Maybe
him.
he followed us and his battery ran out and he's somewhere between here and the old hotel studio.
I think him and the Ducks are just, they stayed over there in their home.
Scobie? What was his name? I can't remember. We had a name for the robot.
I just remember he came on during a bluegrass band,
Yeah.
and the bass player had to turn him off in the middle of the song.
That.
So, yeah.
I do remember that.
There's some things that still should be done manually, and I'm fine vacuuming the car.
I forgot all about that. We heard the bloop, and we were all like, uh-oh, this is not good. This is going to get really weird. Hey, coming up, entertainment headlines. Finally, Cody Johnson, Carrie Underwood, the duet we've been waiting for over a year. Everybody knew about it. He talked about it and then didn't release it. We've got more details on that coming up. The Americana Awards winners that were announced last night. We'll run down that list for you as well. And let me just say, if you're looking for a job, Pizza Hut might be the place for you. Not to work there, but they might help you find a job.
Ooh, okay.
It's very interesting.
Are you looking, Mattos?
I know. What's happening over there? This wasn't for you. This is for other people.
Touch and go some days.
More Coffee, Country, and Cody is on WSM.
Wounded Warrior Project empowers post 9/11 veterans and their families with life-changing programs and services.
I realized I could be successful in a civilian career.
We stand by warriors and advocate for their needs going forward.
They were by my side in the hospital, and they're still with me today.
Through our programs, community, and advocacy, we're proving
anything is possible.
Learn more at woundedwarriorproject.org/connect.
Wonderful folks. We've gotten to know them well over the years we've worked with them. And this Saturday's Opry Live on CircleCountry.com, brought to you by our friends at Wounded Warrior. If you want to know more, donate, find out more about what they do, how you might benefit, woundedwarriorproject.org. Kelly Sutton, good morning again.
Good morning. We're talking about Americana Awards. They all went down last night. Annie and I was on the red carpet with our own Aaron Cooper, and it is a show. I will say, of all of the shows that we have here in town that are connected to awards, this one is always one of the most fun because it's very loose. The other ones are very rigid. It's, television, and you got to make sure that you're on time. And this one is kind of like, you want to come out and play with us? And that's kind of the vibe of Americana, too. Just kind of loose and having fun.
Well, if you heard the Blind Boys of Alabama acceptance speech last night.
Was that it?
He said, they're telling me I got to get off here. And they just started roaring in the audience because he'd been talking for 5 minutes. That was
Americana.
A Lifetime Achievement Award at the top of the show.
That's Americana. I still remember seeing Loretta Lynn perform at the Americana Awards, and she was in the middle of the set. She had like 2 songs, and she said, I'm going to go over here and sit down. And so she just sat down in the chair and then performed. And I was like, I saw Loretta Lynn perform on stage at the Ryman. So it was magical. But congratulations to the award winners from last night. Instrumentalist of the Year was Grace Bowers, who we love. She was actually at the Opry on Tuesday night. Phenomenal guitar player. I believe she just turned 18. So she is really, when we say one of the up-and-comers, we definitely mean that.
And I forgot who she's out with. She wasn't there last night, so Amethyst Kia and Amy Helm accepted for her. They presented it and then accepted for her.
I love her so very much. Album of the year, it's Trail of Flowers, Sierra Farrell. Congratulations to her. Duo Group of the Year went to Larkin Poe. Emerging Act of the Year, the Red Clay Strays. Brandon getting his FaceTime up there. Look at them. There they are. Aren't they good looking?
He's a pretty man.
He is.
Yeah, he is.
Song of the Year, Dear Insecurity by Brandi Clark featuring Brandi Carlisle. You put the Brandys together and they are unstoppable. And Artist of the Year, Sierra Farrell. So congratulations to them all.
And Grace is out with Red Clay Strays.
Oh,
so that's
she
the
is.
connection.
Okay, yeah.
And they're in Pittsburgh tonight.
That's phenomenal.
Talking
Oh,
about
so
the,
fun.
The Brandon Coleman handsome factor. You remember when Ali would taunt his opponents, Muhammad Ali? I remember this great quote. He said, Ernie Shavers was an acorn head. George Chavallo was a washerwoman. Look at me in my face. I am so pretty. I am pretty.
And he was.
He was.
Yeah, well,
He
good looking
was.
man.
He
Well, I
really
thought
was.
about that as I was looking at that picture of Brandon.
Well, Americana rolls on this week here in Nashville. We've got so many different places where you can go and listen to new artists, emerging artists, people who've had several years under their belt, and people who've been around for 20 plus years, 30 years. So if you're interested and you're in town, find a different venue. You can go check out Americana. I do want to pass this along. The last time I was on the red carpet at Americana Fest is when I interviewed J.D. Souther, and he just passed away. So it was such a full circle moment that he was so connected to the Americana music movement. He was at the awards doing the red carpet. I think he even presented one year, but he has passed away. He was at his home in New Mexico. He was 78 years old, known for incredible songs that he wrote for not only the Eagles, but Linda Ronstadt and his own music as well. He was a reoccurring character on ABC's Nashville back in the day. And I said, this is probably my favorite J.D. Souther pinned song from the Eagles, Best of My Love. Take a listen. Isn't that the most beautiful? Just all of their harmonies, and it's such a flow to it.
And I had it on 8-track.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for people who have money.
That's nice. So you left it in the sun and it sounded a lot different.
Well, 8-track, multi-tracked for sure. That's why you always had a book of matches that you would strategically place either above or below the tape.
A little wedge.
So
Get it
just right.
situated for you. One more story I want to share, and then we'll have more entertainment headlines coming up. But Cody Johnson, Carrie Underwood, this is the duet that he's been teasing since 2023. He said, hey, I did a duet with Carrie Underwood. We thought it was going to be on leather. It's going to be on Leather Deluxe. He finally said, get ready because I'm Gonna Love You is coming out next Friday. That's 9/27. There's a picture that they posted. It's he and Carrie with mountains and a beautiful ranch. There's even a horse in some of the imagery. So they are in the middle of or just wrapped up shooting the video for it. Again, it's called I'm Gonna Love You, and it comes out next Friday.
Now, you wouldn't know it to look at them. Let's Go Again from the Pleasures, just played all over the world on WSM Radio and Circle Country Television, but we invited them and gave them directions, and they wound up at the post office in Donaldson, apparently. But they have made their way to the studio, seated, calm, cool, collected, in the midst of Americana Fest, where you're playing somewhere all the time.
Yeah, it's true. We're doing a lot of shows, a lot of different appearances. But you're our first.
Well, oh, great.
So I literally flew in last night. I got in 11:30 p.m. I think. So you're my first person to see.
Did you sleep at all?
I didn't because it's the afternoon in Australia. So I was like, well, I slept on the plane. So I think I've had my sleep. I think I'm okay. Today will be interesting.
So from Newcastle, New South Wales to Nashville, what's the route?
So 2 hours down to Sydney and then in the car, and then fly from Sydney to LA generally, and then LA to Nashville.
How many hours?
More than a day.
20 something. I came from Melbourne as well, so I had an extra flight involved in this. So I think it ended up 27 hours for me, but I came the day before, so I'm settled in now.
He's good.
It's had a bit more sleep.
And it's already tomorrow back home, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of confusing too.
Well,
right?
sort of.
We're here from the future.
To tell you to play the pleasures.
The Pleasures. That is Catherine Britt. That is Lachlan Bryan. And Catherine, you and I have known each other for a long time because you had a solo stint here as a young girl, really.
Yes, very, very young. I moved to Nashville at 17, so I was just a child, really. But I was here about 6 years, and I reckon I played the Opry most of that time, like every week at some point during my stint here. But signed to RCA and still very good friends with all the people there. They're just good people. It was a totally different time in the music industry. I feel like, it's so different.
Well, a totally
now.
different city, too.
Totally different city, just everything. But it was just a small town, it felt like back then, and good people and great songwriters. And now it just feels bigger than Ben-Hur. I feel a bit like intimidated when I come here now. But
you remember the good old days when the lights on Broadway, true story, hasn't been that many years ago, would go on flash like at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, absolutely.
All the way from the river up to the interstate.
Totally remember that. Absolutely. And going downtown was like easy. It was fun. You'd go out and have a couple of drinks downtown with somebody famous or whatever. And I just feel like it's just tourists now. It seems like there's a lot of tourists around. And and it's big, a lot bigger, a lot more bars. Luke Bryan was a songwriter when I was living here. Now he's got his own bar. Luke, what did you do? What happened?
Same with Blake Shelton.
I think he got a career. Yeah.
All
of them. It's Blake and
Dirks.
Miranda, Lainey Wilson's bar just opened.
Lainey's new. Yeah.
It's a shame these guys' careers didn't take off and they had to get into the alcohol
Multiple
industry.
streams of income, friends. That's what it's all about. So how did you guys get together? How did that happen?
Well, I mean, we actually met over here about after Catherine had moved back to Australia. We came here, both of us separately, for Americana Fest about 10 years ago. And we met actually in Austin, Texas. We were both on tour here. I was doing the solo thing. Catherine was doing the solo thing as well. And we played one show together. And we didn't really hit it off the first time we met. Or according to me, we didn't. Catherine thinks we're all right. But I know when I'm not hitting it off with somebody. So I didn't really feel like we got along that good at the start of the night. But then we ended up, becoming friends. And then I think over the years, we would see each other at festivals, and we have always stayed close friends. And then Catherine, one day, in the middle of COVID, when none of us could see each other in Australia, particularly, we were really locked down in Melbourne, where I was, and Catherine sent me a message and said, hey, we should make some music. And that was the best news I'd heard in about 10 months at that time. So I was like, yes, let's do it. And we didn't know what we were going to do, but when we started working together, it just worked. Those things that just feel like they're meant to be.
Yeah.
Well, in your family life, you proposed to your now husband on New Year's Eve?
I did.
With the help, how did you enlist your children's help? I'm curious. I read that on one of your social posts.
Just took the pressure off me, really. I felt like, because we're a blended family, which is, a lot more common these days, but he has a little girl and I have two boys, and we met, after both being married before, and it just felt like, do we even get married? Like, do we do that again? Is that really what we want to do, or do we just do it differently this time? But we've been together a few years, and it was New Year's Eve, which is my birthday, and we were down on the harbour watching the fireworks, and I just thought, I had a little chat with the kids about it and asked their permission, and asked his daughter, who was 3 at the time, if I could marry her daddy, and she said, yeah. Like, they don't really get it, I don't think, but they were so happy. And then my eldest, Hank, really wanted to be a part of it, so he helped me ask him as well, which was just really special. It was, at first he didn't believe me because he thought I was joking, because I've been sort of like, had a couple of drinks and gotten a bit emotional and lovey-dovey and been like, oh, let's get married, and just done that before. So I think he thought I was kind of doing that again in the moment. He goes, kind of rolled his eyes like, don't be silly. And then I was like, no, I'm serious. Because Hank was kind of like, my eldest is going, why isn't he saying yes? Took him a second. He goes, Oh, yes. Yes. Of course. Like, he didn't realize, but it was really beautiful.
So are you married now? I didn't.
Married now, yes.
Okay,
So we
right.
had a little backyard wedding in our backyard, like in front of our studio in the backyard. And it was just like 50 people, close family and friends. And we're married by a local radio guy that's always been really lovely to me. And it was just perfect. Perfect weather.
Bradley Bergen?
Bradley Bergen is my husband and the drummer in our band.
Now, do people think you guys are a couple?
I think so.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes they do. And sometimes we explain that we're not, and sometimes we just don't bother. So.
Will you buy more music if you think we're a couple? Then yes, we are.
We'll run a poll.
Yeah, exactly. What do you want
the
it to
merch
be?
stand. That's right.
The Pleasures. Is that an original song?
That is.
Oh, it had a Delbert McClinton feel to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you. I like all your references. They make us feel very, very good. Yeah. So keep going with those.
Well, Lachlan, give us your backstory musically.
Well, I got a band called The Wilds, Lachlan Bryan and The Wilds, and we've been kicking around for about 10 years, mostly in Australia and Europe, actually. I've been going over there a lot, and I've always been real into like the Texas singer-songwriters, your Towns Van Zants and your Guy Clarks and all these guys. And that's one of the reasons Catherine and I bonded over music, because Catherine, I don't know if you know, I think you probably do know, Catherine is an encyclopedia of country and I guess Americana music. So so I've always been a great lover of that kind of songwriting, and I've been touring around and playing and producing music too for over a decade, but really loving doing this. This has felt like I've been fronting a band for so many years. It's nice to share that duty with somebody.
Yes.
I don't have to tell all the jokes.
off.
I can tune my guitar between songs without having to think of things to say all the time.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's nice.
And when Catherine Britt, 17 years old, comes to Nashville, who was the biggest influence for you to pack up and come to Music City?
Well, I think initially it was Loretta Lynn for me. So I saw that movie Coal Miner's Daughter when I was 9, and I just think that changed my whole direction in life. But before that, it was like Disney music, So that kind of was like, this is the direction I'm going to go in. And then I discovered other artists through that. Of course, Dolly Parton closely followed, and Kitty Wells. And then I kind of went down the route of, all the males. So Hank Williams ended up being just my obsession for a long time, and I still am quite obsessed with Hank Williams. So it kind of went from there, and then when I started coming into the modern era, I sort of found the singer-songwriters, I think, more appealing to me. So when I came to town, I was really drawn to people like Guy Clark. I used to write with him on a weekly basis and just hang out, and that was just my favorite thing to do. And I got to hang out with so many beautiful people, and I'm sad I missed Harlan Howard. He just passed before I came here, but so many great songwriters in this town.
Well, you two are beautiful people. Thanks for coming to see us.
Thank you for having us. Sorry we drove around in circles around you.
Enjoy Americana Fest.
We will.
And your performances. The next one for them is today, 4:30, The Underdog in East Nashville. The Pleasures.
If you believe that you and me can save this whole damn thing.
More coffee, country, and Cody is on WSM.
Hey, excited to meet Lee DeWyze after all these years. We first met him. He came into our lives in living rooms, didn't even ask. He just showed up on American Idol back in season 9 all those years ago.
Yes, sir.
And then won the doggone thing.
Yeah.
That was Crystal Bauer Sox, I believe, was in the finals competition.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
So take us back in time, a little return to American Idol and how that all came about in your life.
Oh, man. Well, I grew up in Chicago. Songwriting was, always the main thing for me. So I'd be out in the bars playing as early as I could, probably younger than I should be in a bar playing music. But long story short, I wanted to make music for a living, and that was a way of doing it. So my friend auditioned. I went with him. He didn't make it. I did. And I guess they say the rest is history.
Where did you audition?
Chicago.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, United Center.
You got to stay there in your hometown.
Yeah. It was at the United Center. It was, when you're sitting there with all those people, you're like, whatever. I'll see what happens.
How many? Do you recall how many people were there?
A lot.
Yeah.
Thousands. It was a crazy experience. But
what did you sing?
I don't even remember what I sang for that first audition, because there's many levels to it.
Yeah,
but the thing was, singing covers and things like that wasn't something I did often. I mean, it just wasn't. And my buddy, that was kind of his thing. So I found myself in a situation where I'm out at the bars, singing my own music, and now I'm singing covers. It was a very different situation for me. But it was a wild ride, that's for sure.
I read from one of the contestants that one of the difficulties of Idol and at that format is singing things that aren't in your format, if you will. If you consider yourself a country singer, you got to sing some pop stuff or R&B stuff, and vice versa. Well,
that's also the beauty of it too. It's once you're off of the show, it's really up to you at that point. Kind of what the interesting thing is when you're on the show like that, you're generally pretty young.
Yeah.
And you really don't know what you want to do necessarily. So you go on there with this kind of hope of making something happen in music, and you kind of see where it lands. And so once the show was over, I kind of found myself in a position where it's like, well, now the world knows me as this guy that's been singing covers for for 15 weeks. Now what do I do? So it was really important to me after the show to kind of refocus my attention and energy to songwriting, because that's what made me fall in love with music in the first place. And so from there on, that was kind of the goal, just to keep writing music and keep putting out records, and here we are.
It gets you out of your comfort zone. I've heard Carrie Underwood say, she's playing the drums on one of the an old rock cover that she does in her set, I think. But she said, I didn't know I could do that. I got out of my comfort zone. I think sometimes artists are introduced. I didn't know I could do that.
And there's a bit of reverse engineering that happens once you get on the show, because you start. I'm this kid playing bars in Chicago, doing my thing. The next thing you know, you're in front of 40 million people. The next thing you know, you're on this world tour in stadiums and all this, and you're kind of accomplishing all of these things that you kind of were like, hopefully someday, right? So once that's done, there isn't this necessarily this feeling of that's the goal. For me, it was actually, well, I want to get back to the music. I want to get back to the thing that I love about music, and I did.
Well, Chicago, obviously a great music city.
Yeah,
and you're in
course.
Nashville, and obviously we are Music City, USA.
Yes, you are.
But what was it like camping out in Bristol, like the Big Bang for a couple of months recording new music? That had to be pretty cool.
Yeah, so, over the past however many years, I put out several records, all that I wrote and produced in LA, and we've had some great moments with all those albums. But on this record in particular, and I think every songwriter kind of comes to this moment in their life, hopefully, where they say, I always have said to myself after every record I've made, it's the next one, That, when am I going to make that record for me, and you kind of, and this was that one. And so I knew I didn't want to make this album in LA. And I had a chance to play Bristol Rhythm and Roots with my buddy Dave Egger, who's a cello player. And back at last November, or whatever it was, and we stopped by a studio just to lay down something for fun. And I'm sitting in this studio, and I'm in Bristol, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, this is where I want to make my record. So I go home, essentially get in the car with my wife, and we're headed to the airport or whatever, and I'm like, I got to tell you something. And she's like, you want to make your record here? I'm like, I do.
I've seen the ghost of A.P. Carter.
Yeah, exactly. So
there are vibes. There are vibes there.
No,
man.
It's funny. It's very unassuming, right? You're driving through, it's like Bristol, birthplace of the country. What's going on here, right? Yeah. There are so many amazing musicians there. I mean, working on the record, I worked out at Classic Recording Studios with Mike Stevenson, and it was an amazing experience. But, it's like one day I'm in there, I just had the pleasure of working with a lot of great musicians, Jacob Burleson, Barry Bales, Tim Stafford, Dave Egger, Phil Ficanti. I mean, the list went on, and even Barry, for instance, it was like, we sent him, send it on over. Next day he shows up, his pickup truck, his uprights the size of the truck, and what are we doing, So
did he bring you cured meat and vegetables from the farm?
Yeah, exactly. He laid down the tracks, and then he's like, what else you got? And so we played him the song "Devil in the Details," which I think you guys have, you've seen the video for. And it was just a really great experience. But the community, the vibe, everything really lent itself to the record. It really did. And it was an experience that I'll chase probably for a while, you know.
Unless it's a race weekend, and then the city changes dramatically.
It definitely does. It's a little bit louder, too. Yeah.
So you're on the Virginia or the Tennessee side? Where's the studio?
The recording studio was on the Virginia side, and I was living on the Tennessee side. So I rented a house for 2.5 months, and little did I know that across the street from the house was like the only funeral home in Bristol. Right. It was interesting. At first I rolled up, I'm like, okay. I'm like, this is gonna be interesting. It was so peaceful. It was so awesome. The funny thing about the line though is it runs right through the city, directly down the middle of the street.
Right.
So you'd be getting up, going for coffee, wherever, driving, and there are people taking pictures with one leg on each side, you know. But man, that the community there was just incredible, and kind of word got around. I was making a record there, and they really just took me in, and it was awesome.
It just dawned on me the sales tax would change depending on what side of the street you buy something on.
Absolutely.
Hey, you'd be surprised at how often that conversation comes up. You know, it's definitely a thing. But yeah, no, I even had a chance to perform at the birthplace of country music museum, and like I said, it's just there's so many musicians there. I mean, anywhere you turn around, someone's picking something, and it just really lent itself to the record. We'd be in there, someone would come in, and be like, "Let's lay it down," you know. It was special.